So, at the core of astrology is the study of the planets of our solar system. And fundamentally, there are 10 major planets representing different impulses and archetypes found in living things and beyond. They're just sort of like the main energies and drives that occur within the universe. So we're not going to get into that much depth today on each planet, but I just want to give you guys a sense generally of what the planets represent and sort of the basic impulses that are being described. For example, when we talk about Venus, what does Venus represent within us, and what does Venus represent in our external world? So we'll take them in order. The sun, of course, is a star. It is not a planet, but it is the center of our beings. And so we typically, human beings identify extremely closely with their sun. It is the seat of their ego energy. It is the seat of their warmth, their vitality, and everything that they want to be appreciated for. When we say, okay, I was born April the 4th, that means I'm an Aries. Aries is referring to the position of your sun when you were born. And so the sun is extremely important for all the reasons mentioned above. We just identify very closely. It represents the work we want to do in the world and what we want to be appreciated for, first and foremost. Next, we have the moon. The moon, of course, is our moon orbits the earth, but where the moon sits represents to us where our habitual emotional comforts are. So who are we when there's nobody else around and we're just kind of in our element, sitting by ourselves, or maybe not sitting, depending on your moon sign. Maybe you're running around doing a bunch of things on the internet, or you're outdoors in nature meditating. So depending on where your moon is, that is where you feel very, very comfortable, natural, settled. It also indicates what your security needs are, what your childhood nurturing environment might have been like. So the moon is extremely important. It also indicates, like, stylistically, your past life experience. So if you've got a moon in Pisces, for example, you've come into this lifetime with a lot of past life experience in, artistry, the connection to spirit, to the divine. You feel very strongly for universal themes and humanity as a whole and the interconnectedness of all living things. These are all Piscean qualities that if your moon were sitting there, you would feel deeply connected and comforted by these types of ideals. So each of the signs obviously represents a different kind of moon nature, like our default nature. Next, we have Mercury. Mercury is our communication style. It's the way we process the world. It's the way we take in outside information and categorize it in our minds. And therefore, it governs our logical processing and our the way we speak and the way we interact with the world from a logical standpoint, from a communication standpoint. Next, there's Venus. Venus represents all of the things that we value and love. So this is the love planet. It's our money planet. It represents kind of our ideal feminine. So for men, the sign of Venus and the aspects that Venus makes to other planets define very strongly kind of the energies that they are attracted to. Venus is also what we value. So, you know, if depending on the sign, the Venus will indicate, and the house, the Venus will indicate what you place importance on, what you spend your time and resources on, and ultimately what you want. Mars is next. Mars represents our most impulsive nature and our forward moving drive. It's kind of like an instinctual, non logical, non kind of mentally processed desires that are within all of us. It has a lot to do with the type of work we want to be engaged in. The type of career oftentimes is governed by the sign in the house that Mars sits in, and of course the aspects that Mars makes to other planets as well. So if you've got a Mars in the 11th house, then you probably have a career that's involved in something of a social cause, or having some kind of public influence over, you know, societally important issues, nonprofit work, philanthropic work oftentimes, sometimes journalism, anything with a kind of a, you know, related to the public good and public welfare. You see this very often with Mars in the 11th house. And, you know, Mars in Aries, very forward charging, and, you know, what you see is what you get. Mars in a water sign can be more of a subdued Mars. Mars retrograde is a more inwardly directed Mars. So not to get too in the weeds there, but Mars is extremely important in kind of how we get the things that we want, our style of chasing after our goals. Next, we have Jupiter. Jupiter is an expansionary planet. Jupiter multiplies the things that it's in contact with. So the signs that it sits in, the house, it expands those qualities in someone, and it adds a touch of good luck and auspiciousness and just bounty, you know, this attitude of abundance. It's you know, where your Jupiter sits is where you feel abundant and rich, and like you want to be generous and give to the world. And then you know, any aspects that Jupiter makes that are harmonious with other planets in your chart just amplifies those qualities in you and adds, you know, a touch of good grace, good luck to those qualities. Saturn is sort of on the opposite side of the spectrum. Saturn is the planet of restriction and sort of like realisticness. You know, we don't live in a world that has unlimited resources. So Saturn will teach you the lessons of that. You know, what you need to be doing with your time, what you need to be doing with your energies. Saturn represents all the lessons that we learn in that department. Saturn is a restriction and limitation, and but you know, the areas where we do feel limited by Saturn tend to want to be transcended. So it's almost like where Saturn sits, you tend to early on learn the lessons of that limitation. And it's calling for you to rise above it, to figure it out, make it work for you. And eventually it does become an area of bounty, and we are able to work through the lessons of Saturn. Next, we have Uranus. Uranus is the planet of innovation, of being ahead of your time. Uranus is also, depending on the house in your chart, it's also where you're quirky and weird. Uranus is detached. It's aloof. It is just kind of like wants to do its own thing and not be part of the pack. So everybody's got a Uranus, and in some people it can be very prominent, very kind of easily expressed, and in other people it tends to be a little bit buried and hidden. But rest assured, everybody does have a Uranus. And then, you know, you have to look at what aspects it's making to other planets in the chart as well, to see the, like, how do those qualities manifest in the people that you know, or even in yourself. Next, Neptune. Neptune is the planet of dissolution, of melding, of the interconnectedness of all living things. It's, you know, the ruler of Pisces in the 12th house. So Neptune, where Neptune sits, can sort of indicate where we're lazy, where we're susceptible to addiction, because it's like that planet that just kind of like checks us out, you know, like we're in 3D reality. There's nothing we can do about it. We're, you know, in Earth school for a lifetime here. But Neptune is that reminder that this is not all that there is. And it can be our vehicle for, you know, checking out to that higher ethereal plane of art, of music, of, you know, drunkenness, or, you know, addiction, being high, or Netflix, or food, or, you know, sex. There's all kinds of different addictions that can represent a Neptunian tendency. But of course, you know, if those are the negative manifestations, then the positives are extremely otherworldly, like talent in the arts. A lot of fantastic performers are highly Neptunian. A lot of channelers and spiritual leaders are highly Neptunian. And then finally, we have the planet Pluto, which in actual size, I believe, is smaller than our moon, but it is so important. Pluto is the seat of your soul, according to the teachings of Jeffrey Wolf Green in Evolutionary Astrology. Pluto represents sort of your basic security needs that are unconsciously powering you in all of your decisions throughout life. And, you know, we've come into this life with a certain set of tendencies and areas where we feel very comfortable, or where we're desperately trying to guard security. And it's almost like we're being called, we need to be able to transcend those desperate, grasping security needs, and explore beyond our Pluto limitations, in order to gain real freedom and real security in this lifetime. So Pluto is an extremely slow-moving planet, because it's so far away. So it doesn't actually cross. The sign of Pluto tends to be a generational thing. So people born within a few years of you'll all share the same Pluto, but the house can really indicate to you, what security needs and what unconscious desires are driving you in particular. Pluto is also, where all of the dark things that we don't like to admit to, so like our possessiveness, manipulation, drives, desire to control somebody else. If somebody else's planet is hitting your Pluto, even if you're like the most generous and sharing and kind of open person in the world, if one of their planets is kind of activating your Pluto, there is no telling what kinds of dark things can be surfaced through that relationship. So it's just important to remember that it exists in all of us, and different people will bring out these different parts of our human nature. So that's a brief look at all of the planetary energies. See you next time.